My name is Carrie Wilson, and at 67 years old, I never expected to be called a leech in my own beach house. The home my late husband Thomas and I purchased 30 years ago. I arrived for my summer vacation only to find my daughter-in-law Amanda already there with her family. Her face soured when she saw me. "Why did that old leech show up here? No room for you," she shouted. I smiled gently. "It is okay, dear." But what happened next changed everything. If you have ever been disrespected by family, let me know in the comments. Subscribe to hear what I did that made her life a nightmare. Thomas and I bought our beach house in Kennebunkport when we were in our 30s. We saved for years, pinching pennies from our modest teacher salaries. The house was not much to look at back then. Faded blue paint peeled from the siding, the porch sagged in one corner, and the kitchen had those awful orange countertops everyone had in the 70s. But standing on that wraparound porch, holding hands and looking out at the Atlantic Ocean, we knew this was our forever place. "We will fill it with love and laughter." Thomas promised, kissing my forehead in that gentle way he always did. And we did. Every summer for 30 years, we spent weeks there with our son Jacob, building sandcastles, collecting seashells, teaching him to swim in the cold Maine waters. The walls of that house witnessed Jacob growing from a curious toddler to a thoughtful young man. Thomas poured his heart into renovating the place, replacing rotted boards on the deck, painting the walls a soft cream color I loved, and finally installing the window seat I had always dreamed of having. When Thomas passed away 5 years ago from heart failure, the beach house became my sanctuary. I would sit on that window seat for hours watching the waves and feeling Thomas still beside me somehow. The grief came in waves too, sometimes gentle like morning tide, other times crashing over me with such force I could barely breathe. But the beach house held me together when I thought I might shatter. Jacob was my rock during that first year without Thomas. He called daily, drove the 3 hours from Boston every other weekend to check on me. We would walk the beach together, sharing memories of Thomas, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, but always connected. Then Jacob met Amanda at a charity fundraiser in Boston. She came from money old New England wealth, with summer homes in Newport and winter retreats in Palm Beach. Her father owned a chain of luxury hotels, and Amanda had never worked a day in her life. I tried not to judge. I really did. When Jacob brought her to meet me for the first time, I prepared Thomas's famous clam chowder and baked fresh bread. "Your house is so quaint," Amanda said, looking around my living room with a tight smile. "Very retro." I chose to take it as a compliment, even when she wiped her hands on a napkin after touching my antique side table. Jacob seemed happy, his eyes following her every movement with adoration. That was enough for me. Thomas always said, "Love who your children love, Carrie." That is the secret to family peace. The wedding was lavish, held at one of her father's hotels. I wore a blue dress I found on sale and felt out of place among the designer gowns and expensive jewelry. When the photographer arranged family photos, Amanda's mother gently nudged me to the end of the line, further from the couple than her own distant cousins. After the wedding, I saw less and less of Jacob. Our phone calls dwindled from daily to weekly to monthly. His visits became rare and always included Amanda, who would check her watch repeatedly and find reasons why they needed to leave early. There were small incidents that hurt, but I brushed aside. Amanda forgetting to invite me to their housewarming. Jacob missing my birthday dinner because Amanda had surprised him with theater tickets. The Christmas, when my handmade gifts for them remained unopened, while Amanda displayed her parents' expensive presents prominently. "Mom, Amanda just has certain standards," Jacob explained when I asked why my invitation to their anniversary party had been lost in the mail. "She was raised differently. Give her time." I gave her time. 3 years of time. I sent birthday cards, holiday gifts, and pictures of the beach house renovations I had managed on my teacher's pension. I kept the door open, waiting for my family to walk through. Then came my health scare earlier this year. Nothing serious in the end, just an irregular heartbeat that needed monitoring, but it shook me to my core. Lying in that hospital bed, watching the monitor track my heartbeats, I realized how precious time really was. Thomas had seemed perfectly healthy until suddenly he wasn't. Life offered no guarantees. The doctor recommended rest and relaxation. Avoid stress, he advised. Go somewhere peaceful. The beach house called to me. Early summer in Maine before the tourist season fully began. Quiet mornings with coffee on the porch, afternoons reading in the sunshine, evenings watching the sunset paint the water gold and pink, perfect for healing both body and spirit. I tried calling Jacob to let him know my plans, but the call went to voicemail. I sent a text instead, planning to spend a few weeks at the beach house. Would love to see you and the family if you can visit. He replied hours later. Sounds nice, Mom. Take care of yourself. It felt distant, but I understood he was busy with his investment banking career. I packed my car with groceries, some new toys for my grandchildren, Emma and Noah, in case they visited, and the quilt Thomas and I used to spread on the sand for beach picnics. The 3-hour drive from my small apartment in Portland to Kennebunkport filled me with growing excitement. Each mile brought memories of happier times and hope for new ones. I stopped at Lighthouse Bakery to buy those cinnamon rolls Jacob loved since childhood. Maybe a sweet reminder of family traditions would help bridge whatever gap had grown between us. The owner, Mary, greeted me with a warm hug. Carrie Wilson. Welcome back. Starting the summer season early this year. Just needed some beach therapy, I explained, selecting a half-dozen rolls. Your family already got settled in, I see, Mary commented as she boxed the pastries. Saw them at the grocery store yesterday, loading up 2 carts. Those grandkids of yours are growing like weeds. My heart quickened. Jacob had brought Amanda and the children to the beach house. Without telling me, I kept my voice casual. Yes, family time is so precious. As I drove the final miles to the beach, house confusion mingled with anticipation. Perhaps Jacob had planned a surprise. Maybe this was his way of reconnecting, bringing the family together in the place that held our happiest memories. I pulled into the oyster shell driveway, noting several cars already parked there. None were Jacob's dark blue sedan, but I recognized Amanda's white luxury SUV. The front door stood slightly ajar, and I could hear music and laughter floating out. My spirits lifted as I gathered the bakery box and a bag of groceries. This would be a new beginning for us all. I just knew it. I pushed the door open with my hip arms laden with groceries and gifts. Hello, anyone home? I called out cheerfully. The laughter stopped abruptly. Through the arched entryway to the living room, I could see people frozen in mid-conversation, cocktail glasses in hand. Amanda stood in the center, wearing white linen pants and a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly pension check. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. Carrie. Her voice carried no warmth. What are you doing here? Before I could answer my son, Jacob appeared from the kitchen, a beer in his hand and shock on his face. Mom, we did not expect you. I set my bags down on the entry table, confusion replacing my earlier excitement. I texted you last week about coming to the beach house. I thought maybe that is why you were all here too. A family vacation. A woman I did not recognize, sleek in designer sunglasses, pushed up on her highlighted hair, raised an eyebrow at Amanda. 2 other couples shifted uncomfortably. I told our friends they could use the beach house for the long weekend. Jacob explained, not quite meeting my eyes. I did not realize you were planning to come. Why did that old leech show up here? We do not have space. Amanda's voice carried clearly across the room, though she was pretending to speak to the woman beside her. Showing up unannounced, like we are running a retirement home. The room fell silent. I felt heat rush to my face, my throat tightening. Amanda, Jacob muttered, but there was no real reproach in his tone. I forced myself to smile, though my hands trembled slightly. It is okay, dear. There is plenty of room for everyone. I will just put these things away and get settled in. I moved toward the kitchen, painfully aware of the stairs following me. The kitchen I had lovingly updated 3 years ago had been transformed. My cheerful yellow curtains were gone, replaced by stark white blinds. New appliances gleamed where my reliable old ones had been. Even the refrigerator artwork magnets displaying my grandchildren's creations had vanished. We renovated last fall, Amanda said from behind me, her voice carrying a note of triumph. The old kitchen was so dated. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak as I put the cinnamon rolls on the counter. Through the back window, I spotted Emma and Noah playing on the beach with a young woman I assumed was their nanny. My grandchildren here all this time, without my knowledge. "Mom, we should talk," Jacob said, guiding me toward the small office off the kitchen. His hand on my elbow felt like a stranger's touch. When had my son become so distant? Inside the office, now transformed into a sleek workspace, with none of Thomas's old books or fishing trophies, Jacob closed the door. "You should have called before coming," he began without preamble. "I texted you," I reminded him gently. "A text is not the same as checking if the house was available," he countered. "Amanda planned this weekend for months. She invited important colleagues from my firm and their wives." "I see." I folded my hands to keep them from shaking. "And my grandchildren? They are off from school." Jacob had the grace to look slightly ashamed. "Teacher development days. The nanny came with us. I brought them presents," I offered. "And I could watch them instead of the nanny. Give you and Amanda more time with your guests." "That is not necessary," he replied too quickly. "Sophia has been with us for years. The kids are used to her routine." The implication hung in the air. My own grandchildren were more comfortable with their nanny than with me, because I had been kept away. "Where should I put my things?" I asked, changing the subject before tears could form. Jacob's relief was palpable. "We are using the master bedroom, and the guests have the two main guest rooms. The kids are in their usual room." He paused. "I guess you could use the small guest room in the back. We have been using it for storage, but I can clear some space." The small guest room. In the house, Thomas and I had built together where I had slept in the master bedroom for decades. I was being relegated to the tiny room we used to use for storage. "That will be fine," I said, my teacher's voice firmly in place. The one I used when my fourth graders were testing boundaries, calm but with steel underneath. I excused myself to bring in the rest of my luggage. Outside, the salt air filled my lungs and I took several deep breaths. Thomas would have been livid to see me treated this way in our own home. But Thomas was gone and I was here facing this alone. During dinner that evening, served on my blue willow china that had somehow survived Amanda's purges, I was seated at the far end of the table away from Jacob and the important firm partners. Amanda had introduced me briefly as Jacob's mother without using my name. The conversation swirled around investment opportunities, vacation properties in Aspen, and private schools. No one addressed me directly, and when I mentioned my volunteer work at the local library, Amanda smoothly redirected the conversation to her charity board position. I excused myself early and went to find my grandchildren. Emma, now 10, was reading on her bed, while 8-year-old Noah built an elaborate Lego structure on the floor. Grandma Noah spotted me first, his face lighting up as he launched himself into my arms. Emma looked up from her book, a smile spreading across her face. "We did not know you were coming," Emma said, accepting my hug. "Mom said the beach house might be too much for you to handle now." I swallowed hard. The beach house and I are old friends. We take care of each other. "Mom says you should sell it," Noah said innocently, returning to his Legos. "She says upkeep is expensive and you are too old to manage it." "Does she?" Now I kept my voice light, though something cold settled in my stomach. "Well, this house is very special to me. Grandpa Thomas and I loved it very much." "I remember Grandpa," Emma said softly. "He used to make sandcastles with us." "The biggest ones on the beach," I confirmed, grateful that they had some memories of Thomas. "He loved you both so much." Bedtime children, the nanny Sophia, appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Wilson Amanda asked me to maintain their regular schedule. Another dismissal. I kissed my grandchildren goodnight and retreated to the small back bedroom where Jacob had hastily cleared a narrow path to the twin bed among boxes of Amanda's seasonal decorations and sporting equipment. I could hear laughter from the deck, the clink of wine glasses, Amanda's voice rising above the others. Later that night, returning from the bathroom, I overheard Amanda and one of her friends in the hallway. "Can you believe she just showed up like that, in those awful discount store clothes?" "What are you going to do with her here all weekend?" her friend asked. "Ignore her until she gets the hint. Jacob is too soft to tell her directly, but I have made it clear we need to sell this outdated cottage and invest in something more suitable for entertaining. Somewhere, without all the depressing memories of her dead husband everywhere. I slipped back into my storage room and sat on the edge of the bed. Thomas's memory slandered my presence unwanted in the home we had filled with love for 3 decades. Something shifted inside me, then a crack in the foundation of patience I had built. This was not just about me anymore. This was about Thomas, our legacy, and the future of our family. As Amanda's laughter echoed down the hallway, I made a silent promise to myself and to Thomas's memory. I would not be pushed aside so easily, not in our home, not in our lives. Morning sunlight filtered through the dusty blinds of the storage room, waking me from a restless sleep. The house was quiet, everyone still asleep after their late night of drinking and laughter. I slipped out of bed, changed into comfortable clothes, and made my way to the kitchen, thinking I would prepare breakfast for everyone as a peace offering. The kitchen felt foreign with its new, cold marble countertops replacing the warm butcher block Thomas had installed. I searched through unfamiliar cabinets for my old cast-iron skillet, finally finding it shoved in the back of a lower cabinet, neglected and beginning to rust. Thomas had seasoned this pan so carefully, cooking Sunday breakfast for our family for decades. As I washed and re-oiled the skillet, I noticed a leather portfolio on the kitchen island with Beach House Renovation Phase 2 written on a tab sticking out. My curiosity got the better of me. I opened it to find architectural drawings of my beach house completely transformed beyond recognition. The cozy front porch where Thomas and I spent countless evenings watching the sunset would be enclosed to create a larger formal dining room. The window seat he built me would be removed for a larger picture window. The master bedroom would be expanded by eliminating the small room where Jacob slept as a child. Most disturbing was a note in the margin: commence construction September 1 after closing. I flipped through more pages to find a real estate assessment, pricing strategies, and potential listing dates for selling my beach house. My house. The one still in my name alone. A wave of nausea hit me. Had Jacob and Amanda been planning to sell my home without even consulting me, I carefully replaced the portfolio exactly as I had found it and continued making breakfast, my mind racing. While the bacon sizzled, I used my phone to check Amanda's Instagram account. I rarely looked at social media, but Emma had helped me set up an account last Christmas so I could see family photos. I had to scroll past dozens of posed photos of Amanda in designer clothes before finding pictures of my beach house posted 3 months ago. Weekend project at the mother-in-law's outdated beach cottage. She had captioned a photo of my living room with laughing, crying emojis. Swipe to see the hideously vintage kitchen before our rescue renovation. Everything must go. The comments were worse. Oh my God, how can anyone live like that? So depressing. You are a saint for fixing that disaster. Does she have any taste at all? Those curtains. Those curtains had been sewn by my own mother as a housewarming gift when we bought the place. The hideously vintage kitchen had been where I taught Jacob to bake cookies, where Thomas and I danced on rainy nights. I set my phone down as Amanda's friend from last night entered the kitchen, stopping short when she saw me. "Oh, you are up early," she said, eyeing the breakfast spread I was preparing. "Good morning," I replied warmly. "I am Carrie. I do not believe we were properly introduced last night." "Patricia," she offered reluctantly. "Amanda mentioned you might be selling this place soon. Smart move. Property values in this area are peaking." My smile remained fixed. Is that what Amanda said? Patricia helped herself to coffee. She showed us the plans for their new summer home they will build after selling this one, much more suitable for entertaining important clients. How interesting, I murmured, turning back to the stove. Later that morning, as guests lounged on the beach, I took the opportunity to check my mail that had accumulated in the small desk in what used to be Thomas's study, now converted to a home gym. Among bills and junk mail, I found a letter from my longtime neighbor Harriet. "Dear Carrie," it read, "I wanted to check on you after speaking with your daughter-in-law last month. She mentioned you were considering moving to assisted living due to memory issues and would be selling the beach house. George and I are concerned as you seemed perfectly sharp at the community meeting last fall. Please call us if you need anything at all. Memory issues. Assisted living. The room seemed to tilt around me. Amanda had been telling neighbors I was in mental decline. When I finally composed myself enough to join everyone on the beach, I found Jacob sitting alone watching the children play in the surf, while Amanda and her friends strolled along the shoreline. The breakfast was good, Mom, he offered as I sat beside him. You did not need to go to all that trouble. It was no trouble, I replied. Jacob, can we talk about the beach house? He tensed immediately. What about it? I saw the renovation plans, I said directly. And the selling strategy. Jacob had the decency to look uncomfortable. You were not supposed to see those yet. Yet I repeated. Jacob, this is my house. Your father and I bought it together. My name is on the deed. Mom, be reasonable. This place is too much for you to maintain. The property taxes alone must be eating up your pension. Amanda and I thought if we fixed it up, we could sell it for a much better price and find you something more suitable. More suitable than my own home of 30 years, my voice remained calm though my heart pounded. And when were you planning to discuss this with me? Jacob shifted in his chair. We were handling all the details. You would not have to worry about anything. Like how Amanda handled redecorating without asking me, or telling the neighbors I have memory issues. He looked startled. She was just trying to help. You know how Amanda Island, she likes things a certain way. And what about the dishes your grandmother left me, the bookshelf your father built? My garden tools are missing from the shed. Where are my things, Jacob? Amanda had some things put in storage, he admitted. She said they did not fit the new aesthetic. And I do not fit the new aesthetic either, do I? The words came out before I could stop them. Jacob stood up abruptly. You are making this difficult, Mom. We are just trying to help you. By erasing every trace of my existence in my own home, by discussing selling my property without my knowledge or consent. That is not help, Jacob. That is control. Later that afternoon, I overheard Jacob and Amanda arguing in their bedroom. She knows about the plans, Jacob's voice carried through the partially open door as I passed. So what? Amanda replied dismissively. She cannot stop us. Your name is on the deed too since your father died. My blood ran cold. I had added Jacob to the house deed after Thomas passed, thinking it would simplify things if anything happened to me. I never imagined he would use it against me. That evening, Amanda insisted on taking everyone to the Lobster Shack, a restaurant where Thomas and I had celebrated our anniversaries. I was not explicitly invited but decided to join anyway. It was my favorite restaurant after all. The hostess greeted me warmly. Mrs. Wilson, wonderful to see you again. Your usual table by the window. Actually, we have a reservation, Amanda cut in. Under Wilson party of 10. Of course. The hostess looked confused. Mrs. Wilson, will you be joining your family's party? Yes, she will, Jacob answered before Amanda could object. The tension at dinner was palpable. I was seated at the far end of the table beside the children and Sophia the nanny. When I tried to engage in conversation about the renovation plans, Amanda loudly redirected everyone's attention. Jacob, tell everyone about the stunning coastline in Newport, where we are looking at properties, she announced. Jacob at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. We are just exploring options, Amanda. Options for what? One of the men asked. For after we sell this place, Amanda replied smoothly. Carrie has agreed it is time to downsize. Have not you, Carrie? All eyes turned to me. Emma looked up from her coloring, suddenly interested. But Grandma loves the beach house, she protested. She told us this morning. Amanda's smile tightened. Adults sometimes have to make difficult decisions, Emma. Grandma is getting older and cannot manage such a large property. Actually, I said clearly, making sure everyone at the table could hear, I have made no such decision. The beach house means everything to me. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Jacob stared at his plate. Amanda's face flushed with anger. Carrie is having one of her confused moments, she said to the table at large. We have discussed this extensively, have not we, Jacob? My son, the boy I had raised, to be honest and kind, nodded slightly without meeting my eyes. At that moment, something broke inside me. Not in a way that made me want to scream or cry, but in a way that cleared my vision completely. I saw with perfect clarity what was happening and what I needed to do about it. I stood up, placing my napkin beside my barely touched lobster roll. I find I am not feeling well. Please excuse me. I will walk back to my house. The emphasis on my was subtle but unmistakable. I saw Jacob flinch. Good. I wanted that seed of discomfort to grow. As I walked the familiar path along the shore back to the beach house, the waves crashing against the rocks matched the turbulence in my heart. But with each step, my resolve strengthened. Thomas and I had built our life, our family, and our home with love and integrity. I would not let that legacy be dismantled by greed and disrespect. When I reached the house, I went straight to the hidden wall safe behind the painting in what used to be our bedroom. Amanda had replaced our wedding portrait with modern artwork, but had not discovered the safe behind it. Inside were the original deed to the house, Thomas's will, and other important documents. I needed to understand exactly where I stood legally. What I found gave me both pain and clarity. According to Thomas's will, the beach house was left to me completely with the provision that after my death it would pass to Jacob. I had added Jacob to the deed out of trust, not necessity. A trust that had been betrayed. I returned the documents to the safe and sat on the edge of the bed that was no longer mine in the room where I had slept for 30 years. 30 years of love, laughter, grief, and healing. This house held my heart, and I would fight for it. By the time everyone returned from dinner, I had composed myself and retreated to the small back bedroom. I heard them in the kitchen opening wine bottles, laughter, resuming now that the awkward presence of the unwanted mother-in-law had been removed. My exclusion was complete and deliberate. I waited until the house grew quiet around midnight, then slipped out the back door and walked down to the beach. The moon cast a silver path across the water, the same path Thomas and I used to follow on our night walks. I kicked off my shoes and let the cool sand cushion my tired feet. At the large driftwood log where we always used to sit, I finally allowed the tears to come. They fell silently at first, then in great heaving sobs that bent me double. I cried for Thomas, for the son who no longer seemed to know me, for the grandchildren being taught to see me as burden, for the home being stripped of its memories. "Oh, Thomas," I whispered to the night air. "What would you do? How did I fail so badly with our son?" The waves offered no answer, just the steady rhythm they had kept for millennia. Would keep long after all of us were gone. This beach had witnessed countless human dramas, countless broken hearts. Mine was just one more. I closed my eyes and let myself remember the happiest moments here. Thomas proposing on this very beach 40 years ago, down on one knee in the sand, promising to love me forever. Jacob taking his first steps on this shore, his chubby legs unsteady but determined. Building sandcastles with Emma and Noah just 3 summers ago, their laughter carried on the breeze. Had it all led to this? Being called a leech in my own home, having my belongings discarded, my memories erased, my mental competence questioned, being tolerated rather than loved by my own family. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my sister Dorothy in Arizona. "How is the beach house? Peaceful, I hope. Doctor said you needed rest." I hesitated, then typed back. "Not exactly peaceful. Jacob and Amanda are here with friends. Making plans to sell the house without telling me. Being treated like an unwelcome intruder." Dorothy called immediately. Despite the late hour, I answered, walking further down the beach so the house lights were just tiny glimmers in the distance. "What do you mean they are planning to sell your house?" Dorothy demanded after I explained the situation. "Thomas left that house to you." "I added Jacob to the deed after Thomas died," I admitted. "I thought it would make things simpler." Dorothy's sigh crackled through the connection. "Oh, Carrie, you have always been too trusting, too willing to keep the peace at your own expense." Her words stung because they held truth. I had spent my life smoothing rough edges, making accommodations, putting others first. My classroom management style as a teacher had been the same, gentle but perhaps too yielding at times. "What would Thomas say if he could see how they are treating you?" Dorothy asked. The question hit me like a physical blow. Thomas, with his quiet strength and unwavering moral compass. Thomas, who taught Jacob to respect others, especially family. Thomas, who loved this house as an extension of our life together. "He would be heartbroken," I whispered, "and then he would stand up for what is right." "Then that is what you need to do," Dorothy said firmly. "Stop letting Amanda bulldoze you. Stop letting Jacob disrespect you. That house is yours, Carrie. Your home, your memories, your legacy. But I do not want to lose Jacob and the grandchildren," I protested. "Family is everything to me." "Is this what you call family?" Dorothy challenged. "Being treated like an inconvenience, having your home taken from you, being lied about to neighbors. Carrie, your silence is enabling their behavior. What example does that set for Emma and Noah?" After we hung up, I sat for a long time watching the waves, Dorothy's words echoing in my mind. What example was I setting that it was okay to disrespect your elders? That manipulation and deceit were acceptable if they got you what you wanted? That my own worth was so small, I would accept being treated as worthless? I thought of my fourth-grade students over the years, how I taught them to stand up to bullies not with anger but with dignity, to know their own worth and expect respect. Was I living those values now? As the night deepened around me, memories of Thomas grew stronger. I could almost feel him beside me on our driftwood seat, his warm hand covering mine. "Our beach house is our legacy of love," he used to say. "Every board, every nail, every window holds our story." I had been allowing that story to be erased page by page, memory by memory. Around 2 in the morning, I returned to the house, slipping in quietly through the back door. Instead of going to the storage room, I went to Thomas's study, now transformed into Amanda's home gym. The wall safe behind the new large mirror was still undiscovered. I opened it again and took out a small, leather-bound photo album I had stored there. By the light of my phone, I paged through images of our life at the beach house. Thomas and me on moving day, exhausted but ecstatic. Jacob's first summer tiny in his sun hat. The three of us with the Christmas tree we had decorated with seashells. Thomas's 65th birthday party, the last one before his heart gave out. Recent photos of Emma and Noah building sandcastles with me. This was not just a house. It was the physical manifestation of our family's story. And I was the keeper of that story. I also examined the property deed and Thomas's will more carefully. The legal language was complex, but I understood enough to know I had options. I had rights. I had been added to the deed as joint tenant with right of survivorship when we purchased the house. When Thomas died, full ownership transferred to me. I had later added Jacob as joint tenant, thinking I was securing his inheritance, not realizing I was giving him immediate co-ownership. But there were other documents too. Thomas had been meticulous about everything. A letter of intent stating clearly that the beach house was to remain in the family as a gathering place, never to be sold for profit. Photos of each special item in the house with notes about their history and meaning. A separate letter addressed to Jacob that I had never opened, respecting their privacy. Dawn was breaking as I carefully returned everything to the safe except Thomas's letter to Jacob. That I kept. Whatever it contained, it was time for Jacob to read his father's words. As the first golden light spilled across the horizon, illuminating the waves with fire, I felt a clarity I had not experienced since Thomas died. This moment of decision was not just about a house or possessions. It was about dignity, about truth, about the values Thomas and I had built our lives upon. I would not be angry or vengeful. That was not my nature, nor would it honor Thomas's memory. But I would be strong. I would be clear. I would stand firmly in my truth and my worth. The path forward crystallized in my mind with perfect clarity. I watched the sunrise Thomas and I had loved, breathing in the salt air, feeling the weight of grief and uncertainty lift from my shoulders. I was Carrie Wilson. This was my home. And it was time to reclaim it. I waited until Amanda and Jacob left for a yacht outing with their friends before making my first call. The children were at the beach with Sophia, giving me the privacy I needed. I found Martin Green's number in my contacts. He had been our family lawyer for decades, handling Thomas's will and all our legal matters. Carrie, what a pleasant surprise. Martin greeted me warmly. Enjoying the beach house this summer. That is partly why I am calling Martin, I explained. I need your advice about the beach house, and I need it quickly. I outlined the situation, keeping emotion out of it, just stating facts. The renovation without my consent, the plans to sell, the misrepresentations to neighbors about my mental state, Jacob's name on the deed. Martin listened without interrupting, then said, I was afraid something like this might happen when you added Jacob to the deed. Thomas had concerns about Amanda's influence even back then. Thomas knew. This surprised me. He never said anything directly against her, but he insisted on those provisions in his will about the house remaining in the family, not being sold. The letter he left for Jacob, too. He was protecting your interests, Carrie. What are my options now, Martin? Several, actually. First, I should review exactly how the joint tenancy was structured when you added Jacob. There might be limitations on his ability to force a sale without your consent. Second, Thomas's letter of intent about keeping the house in the family might create a moral, if not legal, obligation. Third, we should document the unauthorized renovations and removals of your personal property. We talked for nearly an hour, developing a strategic approach that felt right to me. Not aggressive or punitive, but firm and clear about boundaries and expectations. I will need documentation, Martin advised. Take photos of the current state of the house. Catalog any missing possessions. Forward me any communications about selling the property or renovation plans. And Carrie, start keeping a journal of interactions. Dates, times, what was said. My next call was to my bank to review my financial situation. Thanks to Thomas's careful planning and my own frugal nature, I was more financially secure than Jacob and Amanda might have assumed. My teacher's pension was modest but sufficient, and Thomas's life insurance and investments had been wisely managed. The property taxes and maintenance on the beach house were well within my means. After lunch, I drove to town to meet with my longtime friend and real estate agent, Susan Parker. Her office overlooked the harbor sailboats bobbing gently in the summer breeze. They cannot legally sell without your signature, Susan confirmed after hearing my story. And I certainly would not list it. But there are other agencies they might approach. I can put out some discreet inquiries, let my colleagues know this property is not actually for sale. I appreciate that, I said. I also want to understand the current value just so I have all the information. Susan pulled up comparable properties on her computer. Beachfront in this area has skyrocketed, Carrie. Especially older character properties like yours with good bones. Developers buy them, tear them down, and build massive vacation homes. Your location with that private stretch of beach. We are talking 7 figures easily. The number she showed me made me gasp. No wonder Amanda was so interested. The beach house Thomas and I had purchased for $120,000 was now worth millions. But it is not about the money, I told Susan. It never has been. I know that, she said gently, but they might not. My next stop was the town hall to check property records and verify the exact language on the deed. The clerk helped me locate the documents, confirming what Martin had told me. I also discovered the building permits for the renovations had been filed solely in Jacob's name, with no mention of me as co-owner. By mid-afternoon, I felt empowered with knowledge but emotionally drained. I stopped at Lighthouse Bakery for a cup of tea, where I encountered Barbara Reynolds, Amanda's mother, surprisingly alone rather than at the yacht outing. Carrie, she called from her table. Please join me. I hesitated, then decided this unexpected meeting might be useful. Barbara had always been more gracious than her daughter, though we were hardly close. I heard you surprised everyone by showing up at the beach house, Barbara said as I sat down. Amanda was quite flustered. It is my house, I replied simply. I did not realize I needed permission to use it. Barbara had the grace to look uncomfortable. Amanda can be overzealous in her planning. I have tried to counsel her about respecting family traditions, but she is determined to create her own legacy. By erasing mine, the words slipped out before I could soften them. Barbara sighed. I do not approve of how she is handling this, Carrie. I want you to know that. When she started talking about selling your beach house and building something more suitable in Newport, I told her she was making a mistake. Family properties have meaning beyond their market value. This unexpected ally surprised me. Thank you for that, Barbara. The Reynolds family summer home was sold after my parents died, she continued. My brothers wanted the money instead of the memories. I have regretted it ever since. Amanda grew up without that sense of continuity of family roots. Perhaps that is part of the problem. We talked for nearly an hour. Barbara shared insights about Amanda's childhood, her competitive nature, her determination to rise socially beyond even her privileged upbringing. I began to understand, if not excuse, some of Amanda's behavior. Would you consider speaking with her? I asked, finally. Not taking sides, but perhaps helping her understand what this house means to me, to our family history. I will try, Barbara promised. But Amanda listens selectively these days. She and Jacob both seem caught up in a lifestyle that requires constant updating and impressing. When I returned to the beach house, Jacob's car was in the driveway. He was alone in the kitchen making a sandwich. Where is everyone? I asked, setting down my purse. Still on the yacht. I came back early to check on a work email. He did not quite meet my eyes. Mom about last night at the restaurant. I held up a hand. Not now, Jacob. I need to process everything that has been happening. But when you are ready for an honest conversation, I have something your father left for you. I went to the small back bedroom and began a careful inventory of the house, taking photos of each room in its current state and making notes about what had been changed or removed. I found my grandmother's quilts stuffed in a garbage bag in the garage, waiting for trash pickup. My gardening journal documenting 30 years of plantings had been used to prop up a wobbly table leg. Thomas's fishing trophies were nowhere to be found. Each discovery strengthened my resolve. This was not just about a house. It was about respect, about honoring the past while moving into the future, about family in the deepest sense. That evening, I drove to my friend Diane's house for dinner. We had taught together for 20 years before retirement, and she had a vacation cottage about 15 minutes from my beach house. I needed space to think, to solidify my plan away from the tension at home. You are doing the right thing, Diane assured me over her famous clam linguine. Standing up for yourself is not selfish, Carrie. It is necessary. I just hope I do not lose Jacob in the process, I confessed. Or my grandchildren. If setting healthy boundaries causes you to lose people, Diane said wisely, those relationships were conditional to begin with. Real love makes room for mutual respect. I returned to the beach house late that evening to find everyone gathered in the living room. The atmosphere shifted noticeably when I entered conversations, halting eyes turning to me briefly before skittering away. Mom Jacob approached me, lowering his voice. Amanda and I were thinking, since this weekend is important for my work connections, maybe you would be more comfortable staying at a hotel in town. We would cover it, of course. The old Carrie might have agreed, might have retreated to keep the peace. But that Carrie had spent the day reclaiming her power, remembering her worth. No, Jacob, I said clearly. This is my home. I will not be leaving. I walked past his shocked expression to the small back bedroom, closing the door gently but firmly behind me. Through the wall, I could hear Amanda's agitated whispers, Jacob's lower responses. Let them talk. I was done being manipulated. I took out a notepad and began writing a list of non-negotiables for our family meeting tomorrow. The beach house would remain in the family, not be sold. My personal possessions would be returned. My authority as co-owner would be respected for all future decisions. Most importantly, I would be treated with the dignity I deserved as matriarch of this family. As I wrote, Thomas's presence felt palpable in the room. Not as a ghost, but as the solid foundation of values we had built together. Honesty, respect, integrity. Love that uplifted rather than diminished. These were our true legacy, far more valuable than any beachfront property. Tomorrow would be difficult. But for the first time since arriving at my beach house to that cruel welcome, I felt at peace. Whatever happened, I would face it with the quiet strength Thomas had always admired in me, the strength I had temporarily forgotten but had now reclaimed. The next morning, I woke early and prepared a simple breakfast of coffee, fruit, and muffins from the local bakery. I set everything up on the back deck overlooking the ocean, Thomas's favorite spot for family discussions. Then I sent a group text to Jacob and Amanda family meeting on the back deck at 9 a.m. Essential we talk before your guests wake up. To my surprise, they both appeared promptly at 9 Amanda, still in silk pajamas, and a robe Jacob in shorts and a t-shirt. Their faces showed a mixture of annoyance and curiosity. "What is this about, Mom?" Jacob asked, as they took seats across from me. "This is about our family, our home, and our future," I replied calmly, pouring coffee for each of us. "I have learned a lot in the past 2 days about plans being made without my knowledge or consent, plans that affect me deeply." Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "If this is about the renovations," Jacob gave his approval. "The house needed updating." "The house needed respect," I corrected gently. "As do I." I removed a folder from beside my chair and placed it on the table between us. Inside are copies of the original deed to this house showing Thomas and me as joint owners with right of survivorship. "When your father died, Jacob, I became sole owner. I later added your name out of love and trust, not necessity." Jacob started to speak, but I held up my hand. "Please let me finish. There is also a copy of your father's will, which includes his expressed wish that this house remain in the family as a gathering place, not to be sold for profit. And there is this." I placed Thomas's sealed letter to Jacob on top of the folder. "Your father wrote this for you before he died. I have never opened it, but I believe now is the time for you to read it." Jacob stared at the envelope, bearing his name in Thomas's distinctive handwriting. He picked it up with slightly trembling hands. "There is more," I continued. "I have spoken with Martin Green, our family lawyer. The joint tenancy agreement we signed has specific provisions about mutual consent for any sale or major changes to the property. The renovations done without my knowledge were technically illegal." Amanda's face flushed. "You would not have agreed to updating this dated." "You never asked," I interrupted, my voice firm but not unkind. "You assumed. You excluded. You dismissed." I turned to Jacob. "I have also documented the removal and disposal of my personal property. Items with both monetary and sentimental value. My grandmother's quilts in garbage bags. Thomas's books and trophies missing entirely. My garden journals used as furniture props." Jacob had the grace to look ashamed. Amanda stared stonily at the ocean. "I am not sharing this to punish or embarrass you," I continued. "I am sharing this because we need truth between us if we are to move forward as a family. This house is not just wood and windows. It is the physical embodiment of our family's story. Your story, Jacob. Your children's heritage." Jacob finally opened his father's letter, reading silently. I saw his eyes widen, then fill with tears. He read it twice before folding it carefully and placing it back in the envelope. "Dad knew," he said quietly. "He knew I might be tempted to sell someday. He reminds me here of all the summers we spent together, of how he and Mom sacrificed to give me this place of belonging. He asks me to honor that legacy by passing it to Emma and Noah intact." Amanda started to protest, but Jacob silenced her with a look I had not seen from him in years. The look of the son Thomas and I had raised. A man of integrity. "Mom is right," he said to Amanda. "We have been disrespectful, manipulative. Dad would be ashamed of me." "We need that money for the Newport property," Amanda hissed. "Your bonus alone will not cover it." "We do not need Newport," Jacob replied. "We have been chasing status at the expense of what really matters." He turned to me, real regret in his eyes. "Mom, I am so sorry. I got caught up in Amanda's vision in impressing my colleagues and climbing the social ladder. I forgot who I am, who we are as a family." "I understand ambition, Jacob," I said gently, "but not at the cost of kindness, not at the expense of family bonds." I laid out my terms then. The beach house would remain in the family with legal protections to prevent future sales without unanimous family consent. Major decisions about the property would require my approval. My personal possessions would be recovered and respected. Most importantly, I would be treated with the dignity I deserved. And if we refuse, Amanda challenged, though her voice lacked its usual conviction. Then I will exercise my legal rights, I said simply. Martin has prepared documents to remove Jacob from the deed based on breach of our agreement. I would rather not take that step, but I will if necessary. The shock on their faces told me they had underestimated me. Perhaps I had underestimated myself as well. That will not be necessary, Jacob said quickly. Mom is right, Amanda. We have behaved terribly. This stops now. Amanda stood abruptly and walked to the railing, staring out at the ocean. For a moment, I glimpsed vulnerability beneath her polished exterior. She had been raised to value appearances above all else, to see worth in monetary terms. In some ways, I pitied her. The beach house stays in the family, Jacob stated firmly. We can renovate with Mom's input and approval, preserving what matters to her while updating what truly needs it. A collaborative approach, not a takeover. And what about our social standing? Amanda asked her, back still turned. Everyone knows we were planning to buy in Newport. Everyone who values us only for our address is not worth impressing, Jacob replied, and I heard echoes of Thomas in his voice. Dad built something real here. Something that matters. Amanda turned, her expression unreadable. I need time to process this. Of course, I said. This is a significant change of plans. But Amanda, I want you to know that I have never wished to exclude you from this family. Quite the opposite. There is room here for all of us if we approach each other with respect. After they left the deck, I remained sitting there watching the waves and feeling a complex mixture of emotions. Relief at having stood my ground. Hope that Jacob was remembering the values we had taught him. Uncertainty about whether Amanda would eventually accept this new reality. By lunchtime, a shift was palpable in the house. Jacob's colleagues and their wives, sensing the change dynamic, announced they would cut their stay short and return to Boston that afternoon. Jacob did not protest. Amanda remained coolly polite, but no longer openly hostile. Most surprisingly, Emma and Noah gravitated to me once the guests began departing. Without the buffer of Sophia constantly separating us, they sought me out on the porch. Are you going to tell us stories about when Dad was little? Emma asked, settling beside me on the swing Thomas had hung decades ago. And can we build a sandcastle like Grandpa showed us? Noah added eagerly. I would love that, I said, my heart fuller than it had been in years. That evening, with only our immediate family remaining in the house, I cooked Thomas's famous seafood chowder, showing Emma how to properly check clams for freshness, just as I had once taught Jacob. Amanda offered to set the table, a small gesture, but meaningful. As we sat down to dinner in the kitchen rather than the formal dining room, Jacob raised his glass of water. To family, he said simply, and to Mom, who reminded us what that really means. Amanda said little during dinner, but watched thoughtfully as I shared stories of Jacob's childhood adventures at the beach house, the children laughing at their father's youthful mishaps. Later, after the children were in bed, Amanda found me on the back deck watching the stars. I still think this house needs updating, she said without preamble. Parts of it do, I agreed. The plumbing in the guest bathroom has always been temperamental. She almost smiled. That is an understatement. A silence fell between us, not entirely comfortable but not hostile either. I never had this, she finally said. A family place with history. My parents bought and sold houses like investment properties, each one bigger and more impressive than the last, but none of them home. It is not too late to create that for Emma and Noah, I offered. That is what Thomas and I wanted most. A place for generations to gather to belong. Amanda nodded slowly. I cannot promise to change overnight, but I will try to understand what this place means to you, to Jacob. It was a beginning. A fragile truce perhaps, but a foundation we could build upon. As Amanda turned to go inside, she paused. Your things. The items I had packed away. Jacob and I will bring them back tomorrow. "Thank you," I said simply. In that moment, standing on the deck of the home Thomas and I had filled with love, I felt his presence more strongly than I had since his passing. Not in grief now, but in triumph. In continuity. In the knowledge that what we had built together would endure. The beach house would remain a Wilson family gathering place, not a commodity to be sold to the highest bidder. And I would remain its guardian, its keeper of stories, respected rather than dismissed. Not because I had fought with anger, but because I had stood firm with dignity and clarity. Some battles are won not by attacking, but by simply refusing to retreat. The days following our family meeting brought a delicate dance of adjustment and realignment. Jacob extended his vacation time, canceling his early return to Boston to spend more time at the beach house. Amanda maintained a polite distance at first, but gradually began engaging more authentically. Especially when her mother Barbara joined us for dinner one evening. "I cannot tell you how pleased I am that you are keeping this special place in the family," Barbara said, looking meaningfully at her daughter. "Some traditions are worth preserving." Emma and Noah blossomed without the constant supervision of Sophia, who had been sent back to Boston. They followed me around like eager shadows, helping in the garden, learning to bake Thomas's favorite cookies, listening to stories of their father's childhood adventures on this very beach. "Did Dad really get chased by that seagull?" Noah asked incredulously as we built an elaborate sandcastle one morning. "He certainly did," I confirmed, laughing at the memory. "He had just unwrapped his tuna sandwich when that determined bird swooped down. Your father ran screaming all the way back to the house, the seagull right behind him the whole way." "Dad was afraid of a bird," Emma giggled, delighted by this image of her usually composed father. "Everyone is afraid of something," I told her, smoothing the sand on our castle turret. "The brave part is not letting that fear stop you from coming back to the beach." Jacob, overhearing as he approached with lemonade, smiled ruefully. "I still keep a close eye on seagulls. Traumatic childhood experiences stay with you." "Speaking of childhood experiences," I said, accepting a glass from him, "I found the old photo albums in the attic. I thought we might look through them tonight after dinner." That evening, gathered in the living room with albums spread across the coffee table, we traveled through time together. Jacob as a toddler building his first sandcastle, his 10th birthday party with the driftwood bonfire, his high school graduation celebration on the deck. "You look so happy," Emma observed, pointing to a photo of Thomas and me flanking teenage Jacob, all of us, sunburned and smiling. "We were," I confirmed. "Your grandfather loved this place more than anywhere on earth. He used to say the beach house was where our souls could breathe." I noticed Amanda studying a photo of Thomas teaching Jacob to fish off the rocks. There was something wistful in her expression, a glimpse of understanding perhaps. The following week brought a gradual transformation, not just in our relationships, but in the house itself. Together, we began a thoughtful inventory of what truly needed updating versus what should be preserved. "The kitchen cabinets are original from the 60s, Jacob pointed out, as we sat around the table making lists. "We could replace them while keeping the layout Mom loves." "And this living room furniture has seen better days," I admitted, running my hand over the worn arm of Thomas's favorite chair. "Though this piece should be reupholstered, not replaced. Thomas built it himself." Amanda, to my surprise, proved to have a good eye for blending old and new. "What if we kept the built-in bookshelves but updated the lighting and refinished the original hardwood floors instead of covering them with carpet?" Slowly, a collaborative vision emerged that honored the past while embracing necessary changes. Not Amanda's sleek showplace, nor a museum to days gone by, but a living, evolving family home where memories could be both preserved and created. One morning, I found Amanda alone in the kitchen, studying the collection of seashells Thomas and I had gathered over decades displayed in a glass bowl on the windowsill. Each one has a story, I told her, joining her by the window. The large conch was from our 20th anniversary trip to Florida. The perfect sand dollar Jacob found when he was 7. The matching pairs Thomas and I would discover on our morning walks. Amanda picked up a small, iridescent shell. I never understood collecting things without monetary value. My mother has jewelry. My father collected rare coins. But these have worth beyond price, I finished for her, because of the moments they represent. She nodded slowly, replacing the shell carefully. I am beginning to understand. 2 weeks after our confrontation, Jacob and Amanda prepared to return to Boston with the children. The house had been partially restored, my belongings returned to their proper places, and plans made for thoughtful renovations in the fall with my full involvement. We will be back for Labor Day weekend, Jacob promised as they packed the car. All of us. I will be here, I assured him, hugging my grandchildren tightly. To my astonishment, Amanda approached me last somewhat awkwardly, extending her hand. I ignored it and pulled her into a gentle embrace instead. Family hugs, not handshakes, I murmured. She stiffened momentarily, then relaxed slightly. Thank you, she whispered so quietly I almost missed it, for not giving up on us. After they drove away, I walked slowly down to the beach to the driftwood log where Thomas and I had spent so many evenings. The journey of the past weeks had been painful but necessary. I had discovered strength I had forgotten I possessed. I had reclaimed my voice, my home, and most importantly, my place in my family. The initial hurt of being called a leech in my own home had transformed into an opportunity for growth and healing. By refusing to be diminished by standing firm in my truth with dignity, rather than bitterness, I had created space for genuine reconciliation. Over the remaining weeks of summer, I settled back into the rhythms of beach house life. I reconnected with neighbors, clarifying the misinformation about my mental state. I hosted my sister Dorothy for a week, the two of us laughing and reminiscing late into the evening. I began a journal documenting the history of special items throughout the house to be passed down to Emma and Noah someday. Jacob called twice weekly, our conversations flowing more easily than they had in years. He had reduced his work hours, slightly prioritizing family dinners over client entertaining. Amanda sent occasional texts with design ideas for the fall renovations, each one more respectful of the house's character than the last. On my final evening before returning to my apartment in Portland for the winter, I sat on the beach at sunset just as Thomas and I had done countless times. The sky blazed orange and pink, the waves gentle against the shore. I felt Thomas's presence not as a sharp grief now, but as a continued partnership. We had built something lasting here, something that would continue beyond both of us. The beach house would stand evolving yet fundamentally unchanged, a touchstone for generations of Wilsons to come. A place where Emma and Noah would bring their children someday, telling stories of their great-grandfather Thomas, who built the window seat, their grandmother Carrie, who saved the house with quiet determination. I had learned that setting boundaries was not selfish but necessary, that speaking my truth did not require shouting, that standing firm did not mean standing alone. As darkness fell and the first stars appeared, I gathered my shawl around my shoulders and made my way back to the house. The lights shone warmly through windows that had witnessed 60 years of family history, windows that would witness many more. Sometimes the greatest strength is not in dramatic confrontation, but in quiet, unshakable certainty. In knowing your worth and requiring others to acknowledge it. In loving enough to set boundaries rather than building walls. And sometimes the waves that try to knock us down become the ones that teach us how to stand tall. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against family members who did not respect your boundaries? How did you balance maintaining relationships while still honoring your own worth? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to be reminded of their own quiet strength. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that it is never too late to reclaim your place in your own story.